Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can everybody hear and see? Can everybody hear and see? Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah. Welcome to another episode or another discussion about man logic. And today's discussion, as I mentioned in the topic, is why boys cheat. Why boys cheat. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh Abdul Latif, how you doing, Sheikh? So, alhamdulillah, I just want to jump right in, but there's a couple of things that, we need to do a process of elimination. As I said before, we shouldn't bring boys into men's discussion. This is a man's discussion. And my discussion today is really why men cheat, but I use the term boy because boys are irresponsible. They're irresponsible with themselves, and they're definitely irresponsible with other people's, feelings and emotions. All right, so that's why I use the term boys. Why boys cheat? Because it's not a quality or characteristic of men to be irresponsible. And without a doubt, men cheat. No, men don't cheat because they have a problem controlling their hormones. This is the information I want to debunk. Because a lot of our information is solely based upon our own personal experiences, the little world that we live in, our personal experiences, and what we've heard other people. Before you jump to say why men cheat, okay? Before you jump to that, hear me out first, and I can guarantee you your perspective is going to change. Men don't cheat because they can't control their hormones. Where did you get that from? Statistically, most men do not cheat because of sex. Did you know that? Statistically, most men do not cheat because of sex. So it has nothing to do with them not controlling their hormones. A little deeper than that. If you hold tight, we'll get to that, inshallah ta'ala. This is about education. This is about education. So if you want to be educated, then listen and follow along. If you want to be a professor, you want to educate, then go open up your own Periscope page or your own Facebook Live page and start your own discussion. I will leave room at the end of our discussion for questions, answers, comments, or whatever the case may be. But wallah al-azim, many of us, we think we got it all, we got it all figured out. We don't have it all figured out, man. We don't have it all figured out. Just sit back and listen for a moment. All right. So the title, Why Boys Cheat, right? The reason why I use that title is because men, the quality of men is to be responsible. All right. And a characteristic of cheating is being irresponsible. Irresponsible with his emotions, irresponsible with the emotions of the woman that he's already in a relationship with, the woman that he is already married to. It's irresponsible. And so therefore, can we even qualify a person who cheats as a man? Does he even qualify as being the man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can we even qualify him or put him in the category of the men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes in the Quran? So, we got to do the process of elimination. So the reason that I use the term boy is because the quality of a real man is that he's responsible. Men are responsible. They're responsible with their emotions, and they're responsible with the emotions of the other people that they are involved with. All right. So it's safe to say that based upon some Quranic text that I'm about to give you, that a man who cheats, right, may be considered irresponsible and therefore may not even meet the criterion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in place to describe men. Okay. So the first ayah is an ayah that we're all familiar with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ar-rijalu, listen to the language, right? These are the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to Angel Jibreel. الرجال قوامون على النساء بما فضل الله به بعضهم على بعض وبما أنفقوا من أموالهم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started the ayah, الرجال. Rijal is the plural of rajulun, which is men, right? الرجال, men, right? There's a Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose His words specifically. Allah didn't just throw a term out there. The term was used specifically to describe a particular type of the male species. Every male is not necessarily a man, but every man is a male. Okay? Just like every messenger was a prophet, but not every prophet was a messenger. You got it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose His words specifically. Alright? Ar-rijalu, men are the protectors and maintainers of women. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. Men, brothers and sisters, men, ar-rijalu, men are the protectors and maintainers of women. And usually when we look at this ayah, we look at this ayah in terms of the financial or physical provision that a man provides for his woman. But seldom do we look at this ayah in terms of the emotional, provision that a man provides for his woman. All right? Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. What do they protect? What are they protecting? What are they maintaining? Are they just maintaining them financially? Is it just about the money, the expenses, the physical, providing them with sexual relations? Or is it all-encompassing of the title? Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. So it is a quality of men to be responsible. You guys following me? Based upon this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that there is a certain level of responsibility men have over women. And with responsibility comes accountability. Understand? All of the above, absolutely. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. Men are and even if we said, you're philosophizing, it doesn't really mean this or that. What it does mean is whether we're talking about physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, there is some level of responsibility that men have over women. Understand? They are responsible for women. If you're married, you have a certain responsibility that is due to the woman under your auspices. Okay? The Prophet ﷺ, to reaffirm this, he mentioned in an authentic hadith, he said, "Kullukum ra'in wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi," that all of you are shepherds and all of you are responsible. Mas'ul, responsible. The word in Arabic for responsible is mas'ul. Right? Kullukum ra'in, all of you are shepherds. Wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi, that all of you are shepherds and all of you are responsible for your flock. Then he goes on to explain, Ar-rajulu ra'in, a man is a shepherd, wa mas'ulun an ahli baytihi, and he is responsible for the people in his household. That puts a level of responsibility on you as a man. As a man, you are responsible. Listen to the wording. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say the boy. He didn't say a walid ra'in. He didn't say the boy is responsible. He said ar-rajulu. Ar-rajulu, men, a man, ra'in, a man is a shepherd. Wa mas'ulun an ahli baytihi, and he is responsible for his family. So that shows you here again that there is a level of responsibility men have over women. Okay? So therefore, by process of elimination, we can eliminate boys from our discussion. So we're not talking about boys. We're not talking about the type of individuals that get married or get into relationships with women and toy around with their emotions, not really serious, not responsible, take zero responsibility, zero accountability for the damage that they have caused to the lives of these women that they entered into. take zero responsibility, zero accountability for the words that they've said to these women. I love you. I would never cheat on you. I would never do this to you. I would never marry another wife. I would never take another wife. You're irresponsible with your words, irresponsible with the woman's emotions. The Prophet ﷺ told us that women, they have a very fragile nature in terms of their heart, in terms of their spirits. They have a very fragile nature. That does not mean that women are weak. That means that they have a fragility that is specific to them as women. Men, we have a fragility with us as well. We have a fragile nature with us as well. Which is why when Allah created Adam, he took from his rib and created his spouse. Because there was a weak nature with a man that does not have a woman in his space. There is something weak about a man that does not have a woman in his space. Understand? Today in the Islamic community, we pride ourselves on being single. While we go home and cry at night like the prisoner, who comes out all buff and tough in front of everybody. But then when the cell closes, you go on your bunk and you climb underneath your covers and you cry like a baby. So we come out in front of the Islamic community. I don't need a man. I don't need no woman. I'm doing great. I'm winning. I'm doing all these cliches that we come up with. But you go home at night alone. You are crying out for a spouse. That a man, there's a certain weakness that a man has when he does not have a woman in his space. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, Adam was by himself. And then Allah took from the rib of Adam. Look where Allah selected the part of the body. What purpose does the rib cage serve? Understand our nature here. What purpose does the rib cage serve? The rib cage is right here, which protects the heart. You break a rib, but it doesn't puncture the heart. Right. So when Allah took from the rib of Adam to create his wife, right? That means that a man is nothing without a woman. Your heart is open to all types of vulnerabilities without a woman in your space. Look at a man that is single, and I can tell you a man that has multiple vulnerabilities. Show me a man that's married, happily married, and I can show you a man that's secure. Because when you got a good woman in your space, she gonna protect you. She gonna protect your heart. She gonna protect you from getting hurt. You understand? A lot of men go into polygyny not really understanding the dangers that you're bringing into, and your first wife is telling you she's not a good fit for our family, she's not a good fit, we work too hard, blah, 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 and we don't even want to hear her. But she's trying to protect you. But we're so inundated and so intoxicated with marrying this woman, we don't even see that we bringing the devil into our family. We don't even see it. It may not necessarily be the devil, but it might be demonic energy that you bringing into your space. I did an entire lecture about that, man. But, our wives are telling us, no, this is probably not a good idea, and we still go ahead and do it anyway. This woman is trying to protect your heart. She's fulfilling her role, her responsibility, and that is to protect the heart of her husband. But sometimes we don't hear her. Sometimes we make her the enemy. Going forward, so there's a certain level of responsibility that men have over women. All right? And therefore, we can exclude boys from our discussion because boys are irresponsible. There's another verse in the Quran. Follow this verse. Surah number 4, ayat 6. Surah number 4, ayat 6. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُمْ وَلَا تَأْكُلُوهَا إِسْرَافًا وَبِدَارًا أَن يَكْبُرُوا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pay attention to this ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the orphan. Like if you raise an orphan in your home, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, test the orphan. وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ. Test the orphan, and when they reach the age of nikah, meaning biologically, this is the biological age. They reach the age of nikah, reach the age of marriage, right? Which is the age of puberty, right? He said, What for in anestum minhum rushdan, and then if you find in them sound judgment. So that's the biological age, and sound judgment is the emotional mental age. Just because you are biologically 40 don't mean that you are emotionally 40. Okay? You guys understand that? So we have a biological age and we have a mental, emotional age. Understand? Some people are 40 biologically, but mentally and emotionally you are 14. You had an arrested development. You got stuck in a particular phase or stage of your development and you have not been able to move past that. And there are reasons for that. So here in this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the two types of ages. He's talking about the biological age. He said, Hatta idha balagun nikah, that when they reach the age of marriage, meaning biologically, they have reached the age of puberty. فَإِنْ آنَسْتُم مِّنْهُمْ رُشْدًا, and you find from them sound judgment. That's emotional and mental age. فَادْفَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ أَمْوَالَهُم, then give them their money. Right? So if the child's parents died before they reached the age of puberty, you took that child in. Allah is telling you to test the kid. Give them a few dollars here and there just to see how they do, see how mature they are with their money, because we should not give our money to people ignorantly. They're going to do ignorant things with the money, do irresponsible things with the money. And this includes your own children. There's actually an ayah and another ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, La tu'tu sufaha'a amwalakum, and do not give the irresponsible your money. Don't give your money to people who are irresponsible. Okay? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if in fact you have an orphan in your home, and that orphan, the parents left behind some inheritance for that orphan, and that orphan reaches the age of nikah, reaches the age of marriage, the marital age, which is puberty, all right, at very least, then test them to see if they have sound judgment. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the biological age, and he's talking about the emotional mental age. You guys follow me? That you find in them, you find that they have sound judgment. They are children who possess sound judgment. They are mature. Then give them their money, and give them the money, that the inheritance that their parents left behind for them to have. But don't just give it to them, haphazardly. Make sure you test them to see if they are responsible. So this shows us that another sign of being a boy is being to be irresponsible, to be emotionally and mentally, immature. And without a doubt, the type of man who cheats on his wife, who has no respect for her feelings, no respect for the institution of marriage, without a doubt, there's no doubt in my mind, this individual is a boy. He's not a man. So I don't need any sisters asking, well, what about if he does this? Or what about, you might be talking about a boy. I'm not talking about boys. I'm talking about men, real men who take care of their families, take care of their children, had no intention on falling into infidelity, but it happens. That's who I'm talking about today. So, from the beginning of my discussion, I got to eliminate the boys, because I know some of you sisters are going to say, well, what about if he does this? I can't address what boys do. I'm not a boy. I'm not a boy. I don't play in the sandbox anymore. I don't know what boys do. I can't address what boys do. I can address what men do, because I'm a man and I function around men, right? I don't hang around. I don't have boys in my circle. So I can't, you throwing, well, what about if he did this and my husband cheated on me over here and he did this and he did that? I can't address that. That's boy behavior. That's boy behavior. I'm not a boy, so I don't know. You might have to ask him or some of his friends and the people that he hang around, to kind of give you some more clarification about that, because I'm not a boy. I don't hang around with boys. I don't have boys in my circle. So I can't speak on what boys do. I can speak on what men do. Right? Don't ask me about what boys do. Bring men into my conversation, and then we can have a man-to-man talk. We can talk about men, but I can't talk about boys. So don't bring them into my discussion. And unfortunately, some of you women, you married or were married to boys. And you're looking for clarification from men about what boys do. I can't address that. Sorry. All right. So here in this ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about biological maturity and mental emotional maturity. You guys follow me? What was the ayat again? I want to see if you guys are paying attention. Because you're probably not going to hear this stuff again, man. You're probably not going to hear these type of discussions again, man. Allahu A'lam. What was the ayat that I gave you guys? Where Allah talked about biological and mental and emotional. Very good. Surah number 4, ayat 6. Need you guys to pay attention to this. No, not Surah 4:3. 4:6. Surah 4, ayat 6. He said, when they reach the age of marriage, that's the biological age. He said, and you find from them sound judgment, meaning the mental emotional, right? Mental emotional. All right, so stay with me. So people, sometimes men might be biologically mature, but not emotionally mature. Okay? Sometimes men may be biologically mature, but they are not emotionally mature. And this can lead to irresponsibility. All right? And irresponsibility as a man has severe repercussions. For men who are in the habit of cheating, and we'll get into the different types of cheating, because there's physical infidelity, and then there's what is even worse. Do you know what is worse than physical infidelity? What's worse than physical infidelity? Marriages can bounce back from a physical, indiscretion. Emotional, yes. Emotional, right? Emotional infidelity. Yes, we're going to get to that. Absolutely. Real talk. Real talk. I need you guys to pay attention. Especially the men that's on here listening. Because you get up and you go to work every day and you're surrounded by pretty women. You're surrounded by women who cater to your emotions, who cater to you sometimes better than your own wife does. And then you start comparing her to your wife. And then the next thing you know, you in an emotional relationship that turns sexual. And then before you know it, you knee deep in the haram and you can't figure out how in the world you get out of this mess that you got yourself into. Understand? Brothers, real talk. Understand? All right, so being biologically mature and then being emotionally immature. Emotional immaturity has severe repercussions. Once you get to a certain point in your life when people rely on you and depend on you and things like that, you can't just make moves that you want to make moves. You can't just make the moves you want to make because people are relying on you. You are now responsible. Right? And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, listen to this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, thalathatun, 3 categories of people. 3 categories of people. Men, pay attention. ثلاثة لا يكلمهم الله يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولا ينظر إليهم ولهم عذاب أليم. That there are 3 categories of men. 3 categories of men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will neither speak to on the day of judgment, nor will He purify them from their sins, nor will He look at them, and for them is a painful punishment. 4 things. 4 things for 3 types of people. If you don't take anything away from this lecture today, take this away. 4 things for 3 types of people. Thalathatun, 3 people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never look at on the day of judgment. He won't speak to them. He will not purify them from their sins, meaning they will be accountable for all of the stuff that they did in this life. وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And for them is a painful punishment. Guess what the first person is? Shaykhun Zani is an elderly man who still commits fornication or adultery. Biologically mature, emotionally, mentally immature. Shaykhun Zanin. A sheikh, the term sheikh is usually what is referred to beyond 40. 40 and beyond, you're considered a sheikh in the Arabic language. That's about 50 and above. You're pretty much a sheikh. But since we have an arrested development here, usually in our communities, by the time you're 50, you are, although you're 50 biologically, you're roughly around 35 mentally, emotionally. Yep. Absolutely. We have an extended adolescence here in America. We have an extended adolescence. So men mature at a very slower rate than they did maybe 50, 60, 70 years ago. Absolutely. They mature at a slower rate. So the average 30-year-old man today is roughly about 18 years old. Biologically, you're 30, but emotionally and mentally, you're about 18, 19. There's a lot of reasons for that. The absence of a father, as Dr. Umar Johnson, coined ADHD, ADD, absent daddy disorder, a lack of a father, lack of a responsible father in the home. Becoming a man is not something that you get by just learning how to flip through a couple of pages of a book or turn on the TV and pick whichever character you want to be and you just emulate and imitate that person. Learning how to be a man is through the process of observational learning. Observational learning. You observe other men and therefore you learn how to act accordingly, right? Even my children, some of my younger ones, right? When they're in their own little circle, they joke and they play or whatever the case may be. When they're in the car with me, all right, it's time to start acting like you got to leave the kiddie stuff at home because then I'm going to leave you home. We're going to the masjid to go pray, or we're going to Jumu'ah, or we're going someplace where it doesn't necessarily require that level of immaturity. And my kids know, I tell them, I'm going to take you home. You start with the kiddie stuff. I'm taking you home. You want to go home with your mom, I'll take you home and you can stay with your mother. Like, chill out, cool out. Like, you with men now. You understand what I'm saying? Men learn how to be men by being around other men. That's not something that you just open a book and so a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man. A woman cannot teach a man how to be a man. She can teach him how to be responsible. She can teach him how to be an adult. She can teach him many things. She cannot teach him how to be a man. Period. So if you grew up in a home, but you didn't have uncles, cousins, even men in the street. We learned some stuff in the streets, although a lot of that stuff, these false prophets that's out in the street that's trying to give you game. But at the same token, you're still around masculine energy. You're still around men. You're still around males. Look at any young kid, especially more so today, where women are a little bit more in touch with this feminine side. You look at any young boy who's been raised and one of my wives work in the public school system. And we see it all the time. We're talking about third, fourth, fifth graders switching, using their hand movements like females and things like that. Wallahi, I kid you not. What does a kid in the second, third grade know about switching and rolling their eyes? And these are boys. And the common thread between them is that all of them is being raised in a home with single mothers. All of them. Kid you not. Every single one of them. Even in preschool, absolutely. Switching, when they walk, swaying their hips when they walk, moving their hands a certain way, talking. My wife said she confronted a little boy like, why are you talking like that? Like, why are you talking like that? And come to find out, he's a product of a single mother. Absolutely. In high school, it's even worse. The middle school that my son used to go to last year, my wife was subbing there this year. She said the boys in the school are literally kissing in the hallway. Boys kissing each other in the hallway. Walking, holding hands. And we live in Delaware. This is like the suburbs. This is not the inner city. The inner city, I'm sure, is even worse. How does that child that young know what sexuality they prefer? Because it's projected onto them. Children only know what you teach them. Children only know what you teach them. But you have to be around men, and this is very important for sisters who have sons and you're looking to get married. Don't marry a boy and bring another boy who's going to sit around and play video games with your son and you think it's all good. He finally found a friend. That's what you married? You married a boy so that your children could have another friend, a playmate. Because that's what some of you sisters marry. You married a playmate. You married somebody who your son or sons could have play dates with. They could sit around and play video games all day. They could laugh and be immature and joke and play and all that other stuff. Right? Yeah, well, it may be common in Arab culture. It daggone sure ain't common in African American culture. I can't speak for nobody else's culture. I'm African American. I'm sorry. I can't speak on nobody else's culture. In our culture, totally unacceptable. All right? So, understand something. The Prophet ﷺ said 3 people Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not speak to, nor will he look at them on the day of judgment, nor will he purify them from their sins, and for them is a painful punishment. The first of these 3, Shaykhun Zanin, is an elderly brother, elderly man. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ specified a particular type of man. He didn't say an elderly woman, because this is not the quality or characteristic of women, right? It's not the quality of a woman at 50 years old to be out sleeping around, right? That's only what they're promoting nowadays with the new movie that just came out. This is what they're promoting. That when you're, they know, and brothers and sisters got to be aware of the subliminal messages in this stuff, man. They know that, 60 to 70% of African Americans don't get married. They know that statistically, the black woman, African American women, are more likely than any other culture, to end up 50 years old, 40 years old, 40-year-old and single. By 30, 35, women from every other culture is looking to find themselves in some type of marital situation, whether functional or dysfunctional, because they're not going to go into their 50s, 40s, and 50s single. Culturally, it's unacceptable. But to African Americans, because we take on everybody else's baggage, right? It's cool for African American woman to be 40 and single. All your kids is grown, so you go out and you go to Cancun, you go to all these other places and party and sleep and live, live recklessly. So they create movies to play into this mentality, to play into this stereotype. Because you sitting around talking about, I made it, I got it made, and I don't need a man, right? You don't have it made if you ain't got a man. You don't have it made if you don't have a man. You got everything. You got everything, but you don't have nobody to share it with. All right? So, there are many 50-year-old immature cheating men out there, but these individuals are not included. The Prophet ﷺ says Shaykhun Zanin is an old elderly man who still commits fornication and adultery. And why is his punishment so severe? Why is his punishment so severe? Oh, you got tons of 50-year-old men out there that still think they 30 and 40. Yeah, hairline all the way back here. And you still walking around, because all your kids is, grown and, you can actually save your money now, right? Midlife crisis, right? And you out here and you stunting. Absolutely. He's stunting. You out here stunting. Like, you know what I mean? You got it made now. You ain't paying no more child support because all your kids is grown. Or you carrying home your whole paycheck now, right? And you out here stunting. These young girls out here, they're so materialistic, they'll do anything. They'll do anything for Louis Vuitton. They'll do anything for, whatever the name brands are out here. Absolutely. Absolutely. You got tons of 50-year-old men out here. Because like I said, 50, you're really 35. 35, 38. Paying tuition fees. Absolutely. All that good stuff. All that good stuff. All right. And they do it for many reasons. Some of the reasons these type of men, right? 40 is the new 20 though. Might be true. There's a lot of truth to that, right? So for many reasons. One of the reasons they do this is because an insatiable appetite. They're just never satisfied. And this is something dangerous. The Prophet ﷺ sought refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from an insatiable appetite. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min ilmin la yanfa'. Oh Allah, I seek refuge with you from knowledge that has no benefit. Wa min qalbin la yakhsha', and from a heart that has no fear of you. Wa min nafsin la tashba', and from a soul that is never satisfied. An insatiable desire. You could have 2, 3 wives. And this is why I told the brothers before, stop thinking that the more wives you bring into your space, the less and less your desires become. No, you are feeding the desire. Your desires are insatiable. No matter how pretty your woman is, no matter how banging her body is, no matter how much sexual relations you guys are having, you still want more. You're never satisfied. Very dangerous. You are insatiable. Even at 50 years old, you're still insatiable. The Prophet ﷺ said, I seek refuge with you min nafsin la tashba', from a soul that is insatiable, a soul that is never satisfied. All right? Sometimes it's due to objectification. We don't see women as being human beings with emotions and feelings and, desires. We don't see them as that. We just objectify them. We see every woman that we see as an object that will help you to satisfy whatever desire you have. You'll use anybody that you can to satisfy that desire. And you don't care how you hurt them. You don't care the drama that you brought into their lives. You don't care how debilitating their lives become after you leave it. You objectify every woman. All right? And the Prophet ﷺ, he had a conversation with a young boy. Young boy came to the Prophet ﷺ, ista'adhana fi zina, and he asked the Prophet ﷺ for permission to commit fornication. Pay attention to what I'm mentioning, why boys cheat. I'm giving you some of the reasons. One is an insatiable appetite. Insatiable appetite. Because they just never satisfy. And you have women looking at themselves like, well, what the heck is wrong with me? I'm doing everything I can to please this man, and he just never satisfied. Every time I turn around, he's in it with another woman, and he's marrying somebody else. It's just like you're never satisfied. A ravenous appetite, absolutely. And the Prophet ﷺ sought refuge from nafsin la tashba'. Fasting ain't going to help this type of individual. Fasting only helps someone who is God conscious. This individual is not God conscious. The desire now has become the God. You understand? The Prophet Allah says in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Can you not see the one who has taken his desires as his God besides Allah? Fasting is not going to help this person. Fasting does not help this person. Don't throw the cliche Islamic solutions out there. We're talking about a diseased individual. Fasting is not going to help this person. As a matter of fact, this person wouldn't even consider fasting. The desire is so insatiable. The desire has now become his God. He leads with the desire. The desire becomes the navigation for them. The second reason that these type of men cheat, right? This is a particular category of men. The second reason why these type of men cheat is due to objectification. They objectify women. Not just women, they objectify everybody. Because a man who objectifies women usually objectifies everybody. They see everybody as an object. You now are just a vehicle through which I can attain this particular high or this particular instant gratification. You understand? The Prophet ﷺ had a conversation with a young man who asked him permission to commit zina, to commit fornication. He said, I can do everything that Islam allows me to do. Just give me permission to commit fornication. And the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't scold the man. He understood what was happening here. That this man had a desire and he would be willing to use anybody he can, right, to satisfy that desire. His issue is not that he doesn't understand that zina is haram. Obviously, if he's asking permission, he's asking for an excuse, right? He's asking for permission. He obviously knows that zina is haram. He knows. Why else would he ask the Prophet ﷺ for permission to commit fornication? He knows that it's wrong. So it's not that, oh, I need to explain to this person that it's haram and this is the punishment in the hereafter. These people, a person who is objectifying other people, they don't understand that language. They don't understand that language, which is why the Prophet ﷺ didn't say anything to the young man about fornication being haram, because he knew it was haram. So what did the Prophet ﷺ say? He had to use like a reverse psychology on this individual. He said, O Messenger of Allah, I can do everything Islam says with the exception of, being committed in a relationship. Give me permission to commit fornication. The Prophet ﷺ said to the man, Alaka do you have a mother? The man said, Na'am ya Rasulullah, yes, I have a mother. The Prophet ﷺ said, Awatuhibbu dhalika li ummik, would you want somebody to commit fornication with your mother? The young man said, no. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَكَذَلِكَ النَّاسِ لَهُمْ أُمَّهَاتُهُمْ وَلَا يُحِبُّ ذَلِكَ لِأُمَّهَاتِهِمْ. He said, then likewise, people have mothers, and they don't want people to commit fornication with their mothers. Just like you wouldn't want somebody to do that to your mother, why would you feel comfortable objectifying somebody else's mother to satisfy your desires? You follow me? Objectification. Then the Prophet ﷺ asked him, Alaka ukht, do you have a sister? Qala na'am. He said, yes. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَتُحِبُّ ذَلِكَ لِأُخْتِكَ, would you want somebody to fornicate with your sister? Qala la ya Rasulullah. He said, no, O Messenger of Allah. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَكَذَلِكَ النَّاسِ لَهُمْ أَخَوَاتُهُم وَلَا يُحِبُّ ذَلِكَ لِأَخَوَاتِهِمْ. He said, well, likewise, people have sisters and they don't want somebody to commit fornication with their sisters. Just like you wouldn't want somebody to do that to your sister, then how could you feel comfortable doing that to somebody else's sister? You guys following me? Objectification. Because when you objectify somebody, you don't care how you hurt them. All you care about is satisfying your desire. You don't care who you got to step on. You don't care whose life you debilitate. You don't care whose life you destroy. You don't care whose heart you break. You don't care about anything. All you care about is objectifying them to get what you need. Okay? Similar to when we say, I just want to get married to save myself from the hellfire, right? I just want to get married to save myself from the hellfire. So basically, you just want to get married just to have sex. Halal sex. That's basically what you're saying. I just want to get married because I want to be able to have sex with someone and not be in trouble with God. I just want to get to that. I just want to save myself from the hellfire. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. You just want to save yourself from the hellfire. What about what I want? What about what I want? I want to be in love. I want to have a relationship. I want to be, I want the whole marital experience. All you want is to save yourself from the hellfire. You just want halal sex. All right. That's called objectification. I want to have righteous babies. How in the world do you determine that you're going to have righteous babies? Some of the prophets and messengers' children went astray. What guarantees do you have? What guarantees do you have? So for a person to say, I just want to have righteous children, like, come on, man. And what, like, who are you running this game on? And some of you sisters are so desperate. You accept this. You want to accept this. You know it's bullcrap, but you want to accept it. You want to believe it. You want to believe it. All right. So let's now get into the real discussion. All right, so now we, and then there's other reasons why, people, some men, commit adultery and get into these relationships, seeking validation. Some men believe that they're old now and they're married to women and, they want to see if they still got it. They want to see if, and anytime a woman looks in his direction, he just melts, right? Because you're looking for validation. You believe that the more women you're with, the more women you smash, the more of a man you are. And I can guarantee you, a man who has that mentality grew up with a single mother. Guarantee you. Guarantee you. The more women you smash, the more women you have sex with, the more of a man you feel. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Right. You're seeking validation. You're trying to validate your manhood through how many, sexual partners you have. Right? And I can guarantee you got that mentality from rap videos, because that's all they talk about. All rappers talk about is sex, drugs, and money. That's all you have. So if you're being raised by a single mother, there's no man in the house to help you put your manhood in perspective. Right? No man in the house to help you put your manhood in perspective. You begin to think the more women I have sex with, the more of a man I become. Right? Some manhood. These are also the same type of dudes that go to jail and have sex with other men when they go to jail. They dominate other men. Right? Their ability to dominate is how they validate their manhood. Right? Machoism, absolutely. Absolutely. These are the same type of dudes that go to jail and sleep with men in jail. Absolutely. Because it's not about how much, it's the ability to dominate. It's the chase. I'm going to get this woman, I'm going to smash her, and I'm going to smash her friend, and I'm going to smash this one. And the more you do that, the more you are feeding your ego, the more you are feeding this validation that you're looking for. And then when there is no more women around, you're locked up, you're incarcerated, you do that with men. You're looking at the men that's in there, and you're looking at who can you dominate. Nah, dudes don't sleep with other dudes in jail because they homos. And you wouldn't even say that to their face because they probably would knock you out. Dudes don't sleep with other dudes in jail because they are homo. Understand. Muslim men too, absolutely. Sisters marrying these dudes in jail, you better be careful. I got a couple of brothers who are actually prison security guards. Absolutely. And he gives me all the stories, Salafis and all of that. Yes, absolutely. Sleeping with dudes in the prison. These are conversations that y'all not ready to have. We're not ready to have those conversations, man. We're not ready to have the conversations that causes people to be responsible. Y'all want the fluff. So go back and listen to the Salafis and their Tawheed and what the scholars said and warning against this person and warning against that. That's what y'all like to hear. Go back and listen to that stuff. Y'all not ready for real conversations. Y'all not ready for the conversations that make you responsible. And that's the only problem that you have with Shadeed Muhammad. When you listen to me, your eyes become open. You can't close them no more. Your issue with me is not that I'm astray or that I'm feeding you some false information about Islam. Your issue with me is that once you hear what I'm saying, you cannot go back to sleep. You cannot go back to sleep. But yeah, there's a lot of dudes, Salafis included, in the prison system sleeping around with other dudes and come home with the beard and the prostration mark and the pants above the ankles, but inside the prison walls, dude, you know and I know. You understand what I'm saying? You and I know what goes on behind them prison walls, dude. But you come out, in the streets and your Salafi brother's going to get you married, going to get you tucked in with this sister, and you looking at how big and buff he is, but little do you know, and you don't even get a STD AIDS test. You don't even get a medical examination because he's Salafi. Because he's Salafi. He's on the hawk. And nobody can't tell you nothing. until you end up with an STD, you end up with VD, you end up with herpes, you end up with something, and then you run down to, the Salafi community for help, and, the imams are telling you, be patient, inshallah, he made Toba, and all this other rhetoric, and then now the light bulb goes off. Now you woke. Now you woke. Alright, cool, man. You keep following that nonsense if you want to. You keep following that foolishness if you want to. Understand something. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's get into my real conversation. Let's get into my real conversation. My real conversation is about real men who dedicated to their families, dedicated to their children, dedicated to the things that Islam say to be dedicated to as a man, and you have no intention on cheating on your wife, but it happens. These are the type of men that I'm talking about. So now the boys can leave the conversation. You're excused. And I need the men to open their ears and pay attention. The boys are excused. You guys that are here for whatever other reason you here for, to see how many sisters is on there, because this is the corny stuff that they do. They go on my page, see how many sisters is on the page, and then they go back and say, oh, he had this many sisters. This is what gets their overgarments in a bunch. This is what gets their thobes in a bunch. Because of how many sisters is on my page listening, how many, Got you, man. Got you. Anyway. So the boys are excused. I'm talking to the men now. I'm talking to real husbands. Real husbands who have made some serious blunders. Have made some mistakes. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real men who have made some huge mistakes. They had no intention on cheating on their wives, but they looked around and they found themselves in a situation. All right. So my discussion is about men who, although irresponsible, I'm not taking irresponsibility off the table, all right? But they don't actually set out to cheat on their wives. They succumb to the inherent weaknesses that is in all of us, and every single one of us as men, right? And that is the statement of the Prophet ﷺ where he said, pay attention to this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ عَلَى إِبْنِ آدَمْ حَظَّهُ مِنَ الزِّنَا أَدْرَكَ ذَلِكَ لَا مَحَالَ. The Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, divinely decreed, every child, the three types of men. The first is Shaykhun Zanin, is the elderly man who still commits fornication. Number two, is a Malakul Kadhab, is a king who lies. All right, this is the husband of the household, right? This is the man of the house, the king, right? And you still lie, right? Why do you need to lie if you the king? If you the man of the house, why do you need to lie? Why do you need to go marry a sister on the side and say nothing to your wife about it? If you really a man, you really the man of your house, then you would be transparent because you ain't got nothing to fear. You got nothing to fear. You're not in fear of anything. But you lie, right? You tell your woman from the very beginning, I would never marry another woman. I'm not even thinking about polygyny. All I see is you, right? And then you go and you marry a sister. Like, wallah al-azim, I've counseled situations. Brother's been married for years. Sister was married in polygyny for years. The first wife never even knew. Never even knew. That means for years you were lying. Years. And you are the, man of the house. The Prophet ﷺ said, Malikul Kadhab. Malikul Kadhab. A king who lies. Why is the king who lies punished so severely? Because you're a king. You don't need to lie. Why do you need to lie? Just like the elderly man who commits fornication. You're an old man. Why do you still need to commit fornication? Why do you still need to commit fornication? You're an elderly man. You've already experienced marriage. You should have respect for the institution of marriage at this point in your life. And even at 50 years old, you still have zero respect for the institution of marriage, so much so that you go and you commit fornication and adultery. The second category, medicul kadhab, is a king who lies. If you're the man of the house, you're a king of your castle, you don't need to lie. If you're the president of the United States, you're the president of any country, you don't need to lie to the citizens. You are the king. Whatever rules you set is what it is. Ain't nobody gonna hold you accountable. You're the man. But along with having that position of being the man, you're still a liar. You still deceive people, even though you are in a position of authority where you don't have to deceive people. You follow me? So a king who lies. This is the husband, right? And I'm using this as in general. It's the Prophet ﷺ made the comment in general. We're just applying it to situations that are relevant to what we're talking about. And I'm using this to say a man who is the king of his home, who is the head of his household, as Allah placed you, the patriarch. And then you go and you lie to your children. Because you're not just lying to your wife. If you go and you marry another woman, you say, oh, do I got to tell my wife? What about your kids, man? What about your children? You're not just lying to your wife. You're lying to your children, man. You're lying to your kids. Because you got to make up an excuse to not be there. So what are you telling your children? When your children say, Daddy or Abby, can we go here? And you say, oh, I got to go over such and such place. You're lying to your children, man. Is the woman that you marry worth that? Lying to your wife, lying to your kids? Is it really worth that? I guess I'm astray. I'm giving y'all false. I ain't teaching Quran and Sunnah, right? You guys gotta be kidding me, man. This stuff is laughable. It's laughable when you hear people talking out the side of their face, man. It's laughable. I don't even respond to half of this stuff because it's not even on my level. Like, we playing the same sport, but we damn sure ain't in the same league, man. We ain't in the same league, man. I can't understand for the life of me why. You understand what I'm saying? No. I gotta segue into that stuff, man, because we just like falsehood. We love it. This is exactly how the Dajjal comes in with one eye hanging out his head, hair disheveled, short, chunky. He doesn't even look like he could be a gentleman, let alone a god. And he comes in and says, I'm God, and people start worshiping him. I mean, it's crazy. Yes, it is very entertaining, man. Very entertaining, nonetheless. So the third category is A'ilun Mustakbir. A'ilun Mustakbir is a person who is poor but arrogant. Because if you're poor, you shouldn't be in a position to be arrogant. If you're poor, you shouldn't be in a position to be arrogant. You have no reason to be arrogant if you're poor. If you don't have anything, then you should be open arms to any help and assistance that is coming your way. It's not about money. But if you poor spiritually, how can you say, oh, I don't listen to this person? Dude, you ought to listen to somebody. I don't take from him. Dude, you don't take from nobody. You don't even pray. Half of these dudes online talking about, I don't take from him. I don't listen to him. You don't listen to nobody. You just ought to listen to somebody. What the hell? Like, you gotta be kidding me. You spiritually deficient talking about who you don't listen to. You scroll, he talking about, oh, I don't take from Shadeed Muhammad, he's a deviant. Then you scroll down their page, you don't got no hijab on. Like, come on, you gotta be kidding me, man. You gotta be kidding me. You don't take from nobody. You don't listen to anybody. Who do you take from? Please tell me. You spiritually deficient behind Joker. Like, you gotta be kidding me, man. No, I'm just taking the hadith, but I'm applying it to our real situation, right? If you're poor, you have no reason to be arrogant. You have no reason to be arrogant. A'ilun mustakbir, person who is poor, but they're arrogant. You have no reason to be arrogant. You're poor, whether it's spiritually, whether it's emotionally. Even for women who say, I don't need no man. You just ought to have a man. You go home and cry every single night. Every conversation you have is about being married. You just ought to have a man. You're talking about, I don't need no man. You emotionally deficient. And you talking about you don't need a man. You just ought to have a man. It's like, So it doesn't matter whether you're emotionally, spiritually, or physically deficient. You don't have a right when someone is offering you assistance to be arrogant. Okay. So now, going back to the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that every child of Adam has his share written for him of zina, of fornication. Every child of Adam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ عَلَى إِبْنِ آدَمْ حَظَّهُ مِنَ الزِّنَا أَدْرَكَ ذَلِكَ لَا مَحَالَةَ. That every child of Adam has his share or portion of fornication written for him or her, أَدْرَكَ ذَلِكَ لَا مَحَالَةَ. And this will happen, there is no escaping it. He said, فَزِينَ الْعَيْنَ النَّظَرِ. The zina, the fornication of the eye, is to look. وَزِينَ اللِّسَانِ الْمَنْطِقِ. And the fornication of the tongue is to talk. وَالنَّفْسِ تَمَنَّى وَتَشْتَهِي. And the soul desires it. وَالْفَرْجُ يُصَدِّقُ ذَلِكَ كُلَّهُ وَيُكَذِّبُهُ. And the private part will either confirm that or reject it. The private part will either confirm it or reject it. Okay? So what does this hadith mean? So can someone now look at this hadith and say, well, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has already written for me my share of fornication or adultery, then should I not be excused for my indiscretions? Because this is how boys will spin the hadith. Men will see the hadith for it exactly for what it is. When the Prophet ﷺ said that every child of Adam has his share of fornication written for him, أَدْرَكَ ذَلِكَ لَا مَحَالَةَ. It will happen, there is no escaping. He said the zina of the eyes is to look, the zina of the tongue is to talk. The soul desires it, and the private part will confirm it all or reject it all. Can someone now use this hadith as dalil or as a justification? Can't use it as dalil because it's not dalil, but use it as a justification for their indiscretions. Why? Didn't the Prophet ﷺ say it was decreed? Pay attention. I'm asking you guys this because I want you to use critical thinking. Because boys will take Islam and manipulate it, co-opt it, manipulate it to satisfy their desires. Why can't they use this hadith as a justification for their indiscretions? Why? He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed. Allah has written for every child of Adam their share of zina. No. We don't know the qadr until it happens. We have a choice. Thank you, Sister Romana. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. This is Tawheed 101. When you're dealing with the qadr, even though it was written for you, you still have a choice. When a situation presents itself, you still have a choice, regardless of what is written. Even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed something, you still have a choice when it presents itself. Right? He said the private part will either confirm it or reject it. Very good. Very good, Sister Khadija. You guys are paying attention, mashallah. You have a choice. No one can use the qadr as a justification for sin. You cannot say this is what Allah... And to be honest with you, in the Quran, there's about 5 or 6 places in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that this is the argument of those who disbelieve. The disbelievers, they use the qadr as an argument, as a justification for sin. They say that if Allah had willed, we wouldn't have worshipped any other idol, any other God other than Him. Neither us nor our forefathers. Allah doesn't even respond. Allah doesn't even rebut the argument because it's weak, it's flimsy. Right? No, God does not think that you're guilty. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that these things were going to happen. That we have an inherent weakness. We have an inherent weakness. Yet, we still have a choice. We still have a choice. The things that are decreed on us that we don't have a choice in, what color your skin is when you're born, whether you're born to two parents, whether you're born with all of your faculties. A child that's born with autism is not responsible. A child that is born, with one arm or two arms or, no legs, they're not responsible. That was something that was decreed on them, that they have no choice in the matter. Who your parents are, I know a lot of us wish we could probably have chosen a different lifestyle, but the type of life that you were born into, you had no control over that. You had no control over the color of your skin or the texture of your hair. These are things that you had, the qadr was written, and you have no control over those things. I'm talking about things that were written that you do have control over because you have a choice. When those situations present themselves, you have a choice. Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, when he was cornered in the room with the woman and she closed the door, he didn't say, well, this is my situation. Allah knows my situation, right? Qalat haytalak, she said, come, she tried to seduce him. And he said, no. Qala rabb inna rabbi ahsana mathwaya. Innahu rabbi ahsana mathwaya. Innahu la yuflihu adh-dhalimun. He said, your husband raised me. I can't do this. He made a choice. He made a choice. Although zina was decreed, you still have a choice. All right? So the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith is informing us of something that is part of our human experience, and that we are prone to disobedience. We are prone to disobedience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, even those of us who believe, even those who have, people tend to think that people sin, that means that they're not full believers. They're not complete believers. Sin is part of our makeup. That's part of our design. That's how we are wired. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, كُلِّ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفُظُوا فُرُوجَهُم. Allah says in Surah An-Nur, Surah number 24, and say to the believers. He didn't say to the disbelievers, say to the hypocrites, say to the kafirs, say to those who disbelieve. He said, say to the believers that they should lower their gaze and they should protect their private area, protect their chastity. Why is Allah addressing the believers with this? Because one of the characteristics of the believers is that they are prone to sin, even though they believe. You guys follow me? Even though they believe, they're still prone to sin. So Allah is addressing the believers about behaviors that believers do. Tell the believing men that they should lower their gaze and that they should protect their private part. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was speaking to the believers, not the disbelievers, not the hypocrites, believers. All right, and that's the first thing that we need to understand when we look at a man who's fallen victim to infidelity, is that he fell victim to something that was already inherent. And although, he had a choice in the matter, the fact of the matter is that there's still an inherent weakness in all of us. That's the first thing that we need to understand. All right, so men who are... So here you go asking about boys. What about these men that take on a second wife, have children, then divorce because they can't afford them anymore, but continues to try to keep the second wife? You're talking about boys. I can't speak on what boys do. That's not a man in my eyes. I can't speak about what boys do. The men that I know that are in polygyny are taking care of business. They don't do that. I know plenty of men that are in polygyny and their wives are happy, their children are healthy, happy families, family units. I don't know that situation. Only type of situations that I know of that come across my desk are those emails that I get from sisters much like you. Not saying that that's your situation, but I don't know brothers who do that. I don't know polygynous situations that function like that. I'm sorry. Here again, asking about boy matters to a man. Ask me about something men do. Don't ask me something about what boys do. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to the believers. Tell the believing men that they should lower their gaze and they should protect their chastity. All right. So Allah is addressing the believers about a behavior that believe that even believers are prone to. All right. That's the first thing. So when you find your husband has some indiscretions or whatever the case may be, or man, understand that if he was a real man, that doesn't mean that he's less of a man because he's fallen victim to some of these things. Brothers and sisters, if you have questions, why don't you wait until I'm done? I'm not going to answer any questions until I'm done. I need at least another 20 minutes, inshallah. 20 minutes, then you can ask your questions. I have more than enough time to look at your questions right now. I'm not even looking at your questions. I'm not looking at your questions. I'm reading what the material that I set out to convey to you. And then once that's done, inshallah, I'll have enough time to look at your questions and your comments and address those things, inshallah. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that we need to understand is that men need, this is the critical thing. I want brothers and sisters to listen very closely. Please listen. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. Women, I need you to pay attention. All right? The other thing that we need to understand is that men need just as much of an emotional connection or attention in a marriage as women do. You follow me? In a marriage, men need an emotional connection, an emotional experience, right? Just as much as women need in a relationship. Women tend to think that they are the only emotional ones in a relationship, and their emotions are the only ones that matter. Not realizing that men are just as emotional or emotionally in need in a relationship as women are. Sometimes even more. Sometimes even more. Understand that. We're not just these strong, men that all you got to do is feed us and give us sex and we're okay. Nah, we have emotional needs as well in a relationship. Okay? We don't express it openly. We don't express it as openly as you guys do as women. As I said before, men and women are different. So when a woman needs some emotional attention, she'll do something, she'll, convey it verbally, however she decides to convey that to her spouse. But men, when we need emotional, attention, we don't just come out and say, hey, I'm feeling vulnerable right now. I need you to attend to my emotional needs right now. Because that would sound, very feminine of us. So, men, especially alpha men, we don't come off like that. Men don't come off like that. We don't say, hey, I'm feeling vulnerable today. I don't feel good about myself today. I need some attention. We might spark up a conversation about ourselves, maybe talking down on ourselves. Like, I sound this, I sound that, right? I feel like this or I feel like that. And we're basically saying to our wives, I need you to stroke my ego right now. I need you to stroke my ego right now, right? But no man is going to say, I'm feeling very much. Yes, we might even shut down. We might just stop talking, but might be quiet, right? Unusually quiet. And then you're waiting for your wife to say, babe, what's wrong? And be like, nah, everything cool, everything all right. Nah, something is bothering you. And men should not say how they feel. Everybody is not comfortable expressing their emotions. As I said, men speak to solve problems. They don't speak to connect emotionally. That's what y'all do. No, you're not mind readers. Women are not mind readers. You're absolutely right. But understand your man. Understand your husband. Every man is not comfortable, talking about his emotional needs at that moment. Every man is not comfortable with that. Some men are very, comfortable in their space and they can articulate what they need at that moment. Sometimes we don't even know what we need. That's another thing. Both men and women. Sometimes we don't even know what we need. All we know is that there's a void there somewhere inside. Don't really know how to articulate what I need at that moment. You're just hoping that your spouse sees that there's a need and rushes to the spot and fills that void. Understand? Everybody should be able to speak as a man and a woman. Man, understand, man, we got a whole plethora of experiences. Maybe we grew up in a household where we weren't taught to express how we feel emotionally. Understand your spouse's background and where they come from. If you grew up in a home and you were beat, right? You were beat relentlessly in the home, and then you start crying and your mother like, shut up, let another word out come out of your mouth. Shut your mouth, right? You're taught to suppress your emotions. That's basically what you're teaching your child, to suppress. All right? Do you think that a child who grows up in a home where they were taught to suppress their emotions is going to be able to go into a relationship and actually tell you and articulate to you what they need? You grew up in a home where they didn't express. I grew up in a home where you didn't express how you felt emotionally. That's something I had to come out of. You understand what I'm saying? Like, most of us grew up in homes like that. So to say very callously, men and women, that's the problem with the world today. You know, the backgrounds of people and where they come from and how it affects their adulthood. Don't dismiss that. That plays into where we are and why we function the way we do as adults. You as a man, you got to realize that that was the dysfunction of your home, and you know, you cannot have a healthy relationship if in fact, you know what I mean, if in fact you don't deal with that issue, you know. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's very important. You can't say, yeah, men and women need to learn how to express. Like, if it was that simple, we wouldn't have marital problems. Some women grew up in homes too, yeah, but we're not talking about the women. I'm going to get to the women. Trust me. I got about maybe 2 more man logics to do, and I'm coming for the women. Yes, we're going to address, you know, some of your issues. But understand, we can't dismiss that. We can't say men and women should learn how to... Where are we learning this stuff from? Where are we learning? Nah, women don't... It's not women logic. It's something totally different. Nah, men, we the only one that use that type of logic. All right? So that's number 1. That's number 2. So men need emotional attention in a marriage just as often, or sometimes more than often, than women do. All right? So keep that in mind. We don't, as men, don't necessarily express it as openly or as often as women do, because it's not our nature. That's not our nature. It's not our nature to be needy, to come off needy. We don't, you know what I mean? Like, we don't do that. We don't do that. Sometimes as men, we expect that you understand what we're going through. All right. Sometimes we expect that you understand what we're going through, that we had a rough day, that, you know, all the things going on in my life. And we expect that as a woman, you should already know this, and you should be in tune with this, and you should be aware of that. You got to learn how to communicate to your spouse. All right. But believe it or not, men don't cheat for more sex. Real men. I'm not talking about the boys anymore. The boys were excused about 20 minutes ago. Boys were excused from our conversation about 20 minutes ago. Right now, we're just dealing with men. We're dealing with men who had no intention on cheating on their wives, but looked up one day and found themselves knee-deep in infidelity. All right? Men do not cheat. Sisters, listen to me closely. Men do not cheat for more sex. It's not that we're just dogs and we're insatiable and we just want to sleep with as many women as we can. Men don't treat, real men, real husbands, real family men do not cheat for more sex. Understand? So what do they cheat for? Why do men cheat? Men, you can't answer this unless you're speaking from a theoretical perspective, because there would be self-disclosure. So I would be tread very lightly in responding. Why do men cheat? For attention? Okay. To fill emotional voids. Okay. So you guys are figuring it out. So let's debunk this idea that men cheat for more sex. They don't cheat for sex. Real men, I'm not talking about boys, right, who still trying to validate their manhood, that don't even know what manhood is, and they think by as many women they sleep with, that's more of a man they become. Those are boys. We're not talking about them. We're talking about real men. Because wives are emotionally unavailable. Very good, Sister Zubaida. Very good. All right. So let's talk about that piece right there. Being emotionally unavailable. All right. So although sex is more mental and emotional than it is physical. Did you guys know that? Real sex. I'm not talking about some random sexual escapade with some nondescript person. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about sexual relations between husband and wife. It's more emotional and mental than it is physical. I don't know if you guys know that. Especially for those who say, I'm marrying for halal sex. Right? The delusional individuals who say they marrying for halal sex. Sex is more emotional and mental than it is. Do you know what the biggest sex organ in the body is? What's the biggest sex organ in the body? Not the private part. What is the biggest sex organ in the body? The brain. Very good. The brain. The brain. Absolutely. Because it's mental and emotional more than it is physical. All right. Keep that in mind. All right. So although sex is more mental and emotional than it is physical, men cheat seeking to fulfill an emotional void, and sex just comes along with the territory. Sex just comes along with the territory. But men cheat for emotional stimulation, emotional connection, to fill an emotional void. Sex is just part of the game and just part of the territory. All right. Author Newman Gary, the author of The Truth About Cheating, all right, he wrote a book called The Truth About Cheating. Listen to this very closely. He says that cheating is more about emotions than it is about sex. He interviewed thousands of men. He interviewed thousands of men who cheated and found that only 8% of the thousands of men that he interviewed that cheated on their wives, only 8% of those men said that it was about sexual dissatisfaction. The book is called The Truth About Cheating. The book is called The Truth About Cheating. He said he interviewed thousands of men who have cheated on their wives, and only 8% of the men that he interviewed that cheated on their wives said that they cheated because of sexual dissatisfaction. Understand? So it's not about sex. Stop thinking that men cheat because of sex. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Okay? I just want to kind of debunk this. We're going to get to that. All right? So understand something. When men cheat, it's not necessarily, I'm talking about real men. I'm not talking about boys. I'm talking about real men that caretakers of their families, have children, husbands. When they fall victim to cheating, it's usually not about sex. It's not about sexual dissatisfaction. All right? Something deeper than that. He said 8% of these men said that sexual satisfaction was not the main factor in their infidelity. Understand that emotional connection may be a man's love language, that we all have love languages, the way that we express and the way that we receive love, right? Understand, you guys follow me, that everyone has their own way of conveying and receiving love. It's called the love language, all right? There's a book that I had that I mentioned to you before called The 5 Love Languages, all right? And so the emotional connection may be a man's love language. Maybe he likes to be connected through emotions. And it's translated through sex. Did you know that sex could be a love language for someone? Not because of the physical aspect of sex, but because sex confirms for certain men that you actually still love me. Which is why when a woman refuses to have sexual relations with her spouse, it begins to break down the relationship in his eyes. In her eyes, it's like it's just sex. Our relationship is more than just sex. But to a man who connects to you emotionally through sex, it starts to break down his relationship. Absolutely. Sisters, stop doing that to your husbands, man. Because you look at it as, well, we're not having sex tonight. Well, I don't feel like having sex, right? But for him, he wants to connect with you emotionally through sex. Sex for him is not just the act of releasing. Sex for the man is, this is the way we connect with you emotionally. Although we're doing it, in a physical way. Understand? All right, let me break it down for you even further. Women don't connect through sex. Women do not connect with another person, another man, through sex. What if a husband denies his wife? Here again, you're asking about boy behavior. I don't know men who deny their wives sex. I'm sorry. The Prophet ﷺ had 9 wives at one time, and he went around to all 9 of them. Those are the type of men that I know. The polygynous marriages that I know of, the women are sexually satisfied in those relationships. I never hear any problems about that. You're asking about boy behavior. I can't answer that. Ask me about things that men do, and I can talk about men. I can't talk about what boys do. All right? I don't play in the sandbox no more. All right? But women don't connect through sex. How do women connect? How do women connect? Women don't connect through sex. He had 9 wives at one time. He was married to a total of 12, some say 14 women in his lifetime. But at one time, he only had 9. Women connect through emotions, right? They connect through emotions, and sex is a factor depending on what? How deep those emotions are, right? Women connect, talking, emotion, like you convey your emotions through talking, communication, right? But what you're communicating is emotions. That's why women's conversations are they're so emotionally wrought. They're wrought with emotion, right? The conversations, because that's the way you're transferring and sharing information or sharing, emotion through talking. Men, we share emotions through physical touch, physical, engagement, sexual relations. You understand? You see how we transfer emotions differently as men and women. Women will talk and have a great time talking because through that conversation you've transferred, she's shared information with you that was emotionally wrought, and you've shared information with her that was emotionally wrought. And this is stimulation for you. For men, we don't get stimulated by having conversations. All right? So women connect through emotions, and sex is just a factor depending on how deep that emotional connection was. If a woman is connected with you emotionally, then she might have sexual relations with you depending on how deep your emotional connection was. Men, on the other hand, are different than women, and we connect physically, and then the emotions follow the physical connection. All right, we connect physically, and then the emotions, right, follow afterwards. You guys lead with your emotion, and based upon how your emotions were handled, then the physical connection will come after that. Whereas we are the opposite. We lead with a physical connection, and depending on how that physical connection went, then the chemistry went, then the emotion will, right, exactly, the emotions will follow. So we're different. The Prophet ﷺ, and this is the reason why denying a man sexual relations in Islam is a very serious sin, right? Because it begins the breakdown of the relationship for the man. For the woman, you might not see it as much because sex is not as important, in a relationship as it is, for the man. For you, it's just physical connection, a way to release. But for the man, it's the way that we connect with you emotionally. It's the way that we connect with you emotionally. And perhaps this is one of the reasons why the sin for denying a man his right to sexual intimacy is so severe in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا دَعَى الرَّجُلُ. Here again, when a man, listen to his language. إِذَا دَعَى الرَّجُلُ إِمْرَأَتَهُ إِلَى فِرَاشِهِ فَأَبَتْ غَضْبَانٍ فَأَبَتْ عليه فباتت غضبان عليها لعنتها الملائكة حتى تصبح. Hadith is collected in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said that when a man, listen to the wording, when a man calls his wife to the bed meaning to be intimate with her. And she refuses him. فَأَبَتْ. She refuses. فَبَاتَتْ غَضْبَانًا عَلَيْهَا. And he goes to sleep angry with her because of that. لَعْنَتْهَا الْمَلَائِكَةَ حَتَّى تُصْبِحْ. The angels curse her from night all the way into the morning. Understand? This is not somebody else cursing you, but this is the angels cursing you. This is the angels cursing you. The angels curse you until the morning. And this is provided you don't have a legitimate reason to deny him. Obviously, if you have a legitimate reason to deny him, obviously, if he slept with someone else, right, and you're afraid of him giving something to you, or if he's violated, the sanctuary of the marriage, or violated your trust in ways that just doesn't allow you to, be connected with him like that, then there's no sin on you for doing that. There's no sin on you for doing that. This is protecting yourself. All right? So men find physical engagement, right? Physical engagement therapeutic. When we engage in things physically, it's therapeutic for us as men, right? Whether we're working on cars, right? We get emotionally involved because the physical engagement is where our emotions, it follows the physical engagement. So whether we're working on cars, we're working out, or we're boxing or engaging in anything that is physical, exercise, anything, it becomes therapeutic for us. Where men are hands-on, physical engagement, right? Which is why in the classroom, boys learn differently than girls. Boys function better and at a higher rate of efficiency when they're in a hands-on classroom. When they're in a hands-on classroom. Because they can now engage and put all of their energy and attention into the thing that they're engaging. All right? Whereas women, you like to engage intellectually. So you can open a book, sit in front of a book, and read, all day long. Men, we have to be engaged physically. We're different. We're wired differently. All right? So men find physical engagement therapeutic, while women find mental stimulation therapeutic. Nobody is justifying cheating, sister. I'm not here justifying cheating. Listen to understand. Don't listen to respond. Listen to understand. I am not sitting here justifying cheating. But what to say if you want to cheat and don't get married, that's a very blanket statement. Come on, you guys are more intelligent than that. I believe that you guys that are making these comments, you're far more intelligent than that. I don't think any man, real man who dedicates his life to his children, dedicates his life to his wife, takes all of his money and spends it all on his family, wants to cheat. These are not the type of men that cheat. This is not characteristic of men who cheat. Understand? So it's don't say, I don't think if you want to cheat, don't get married. Married people become victims of their own desires. Married people become victims of shaitan. Just because we're married doesn't mean that we don't fall victim. We fall victim. No man went into a relationship with the intention on cheating on this woman after having children with him, spending all of his money, building a home, no man does that. You understand what I'm saying? Even logically, when men, wherever a man spends his money, that's what's important to him. Understand? Men love their money. And wherever a man spends his money, that's exactly, what's important to him. So no man is going to go to work 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then come home and spend his whole paycheck on rent, mortgage, food, and, doing all of these things, and then go cheat. No man does that. It's not even logical for men to do that. If a man is going to cheat, being in a relationship with you, he's going to spend money on you only to divert your attention from the fact that he's cheating. He's not going to spend money and invest in you when he knows that you're just a fling, when he knows that you're just a side piece that he's going to eventually leave. You understand? Men don't do that. At least not smart men anyway. He said bars. Keep it in 100. Understand? When a man is going to cheat on a woman, he's not going to invest anything in her because he doesn't see her as anything but a means to an end. But when a man feels like this is the end for him, right? He's going to invest in that. And even if he ends up cheating, ends up falling victim to infidelity, he didn't intend to do that because he wouldn't have invested all the time and energy and money in that. That would be stupid. You follow what I'm saying? So it's not me condoning people that cheating, you know. You do have the right to speak your mind, but don't believe that you can speak your mind and you're not going to be challenged. If you say something that's illogical, you say something that goes against, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to be challenged. You don't get to come on and just throw a rock and then run behind a car and say, well, I can say what I want to say. No, you're going to be engaged. You're going to be engaged and you're going to own your words. All right. And I say that with all due respect. I say that with all due respect. All right. All right. So this does not mean that women are to blame for men's infidelity. All right. This does not mean that women, I don't want any woman on here to think that it's, so you got to walk away feeling like, well, it's my fault that my husband cheated. No, you are not to blame for your husband's infidelity. Nor does it mean that the men who act on their desires and commit infidelity are not responsible for their acts. For their actions as well as the repercussions of their actions. I simply want both men and women to understand the human side of men and how we are wired. How we are wired. I'm not saying that women are responsible, but if you want to get your relationship back on track after infidelity, both parties have to sit back and look at themselves and figure out, how did he even end up in this situation? And if a husband say that, I feel like you weren't showing me enough emotional attention, don't brush that off. Don't say, oh, you just, you're deflecting. You're just using that as an excuse. No, that's a valid point. That's a valid point. You can't imagine how many men, Muslim men, are out here married, but their wives are completely emotionally detached from them. You can't imagine how many brothers that are out here married and their wives are completely emotionally detached from them. So if your husband says, I did this because you don't show me any attention or whatever the case may be, don't dismiss that. Don't deflect and say, well, no, you can't use that as a justification. He's not using it as a justification. He's sharing with you some of the things that drove him to make the decision that he made. Absolutely. Well, once a cheater, always a cheater. Don't forgive him, move on. Well, luckily for a lot of couples, they don't take that advice. Some couples do stay and try to work their situation out. Some sisters do actually stay, right, and try to work their situation out. So you can speak from a place of privilege when you haven't invested in something, right? When you've invested in a relationship, 10, 15 years in a relationship, and this man has been a good man, upright man, all the way up to this point, and then within the last year or 6 months, your relationship has taken a different turn. That's not something you just throw away. That's not something you just say, once a cheater, always a cheater. You're talking about boys. We're talking about men. You're talking about boys. We're talking about men. We're talking about men and women who have invested in their relationships. 10, 15, 20 years that they've invested. And they're not going to let one mishap, one slip up cause them to throw everything out the window. And you're talking about just leave him. You're talking about you got a mortgage, you got a home, you got cars, you got businesses invested, you got children. Like, separating you two is like separating Velcro. It ain't that simple, man. Okay, cool. So, in addition to this, I want to highlight emotional infidelity. emotional infidelity. Brothers, I want you to listen to this, because this is how it happens. So the men who don't set out to cheat on their wives, they end up falling into infidelity, sometimes either physically, where they go ahead and do it, or emotionally, right? Emotional, right? Infidelity. Very dangerous. And emotional infidelity gets overlooked or lost in the translation of the crime of cheating. Oftentimes when women accuse their husband of cheating, they overlook the emotional connection. They overlook the emotional infidelity. Oh, you slept with her? Blah, 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 blah. But you're not really thinking about, how did he get to the point where he slept with her? There was an emotional connection. Understand? An emotional connection that you forgot about. There was an emotional connection there. If a married man who's invested years of his life in a marriage with a woman doesn't even know how to talk to women, right? They've been out of the game for such a long time. So cheating on their wives doesn't just happen like somebody who's a young boy who's just still out there, thinking he that dude sleeping around with women, kicking it with girls everywhere he go. He has no self-control. That's the type of guy that's with a woman and can sleep with anybody. I'm talking about a real man, a real husband, right? And it took time for the woman to work on him, or for him to work on that situation before he got a chance to sleep with her. And sometimes he never actually sleeps with her. He never actually does the actual act of having sex with her. Sometimes it might remain platonic, but it's actually a romance. It's actually a romantic relationship. It's an emotional connection. The name of the book is called Why Men Cheat. All right. So the emotional infidelity gets overlooked or lost in translation. You just concerned that he slept with her. Or you slept with her, but you're not thinking about, well, what about all of the emotional connection that they had for months that actually led up to him sleeping with her? And we totally overlook that. Because all you're focused on as the woman is, he slept with her. You belong to me. Why are you sleeping with somebody else? But what you're not thinking about is all of the emotional investment that went into him sleeping with her. That's what you forget about. And there was an emotional connection. There was an emotional connection. The author is Norman Gary. The Truth About Cheating. Sorry, the title of the book is called The Truth About Cheating. Newman Gary is the author. All right, so the emotional infidelity gets overlooked or lost in translation of the crime of cheating, and men have a hard time creating boundaries with women. Brothers, I want you to think about this at your job, because this is where emotional infidelity starts, usually at work. At work and online. Social media, I think it's NEU. All right. Most of the emotional infidelity happens at work. Yes, at the workplace. Because when you think about it, you're actually at work with this person for 8 or 9 hours. And if you work overtime, maybe up to 12 hours, you're with this person. You see them 5 days a week, 8 to 12 hours every day. You spend more time with your coworker than you do with your own spouse. Yep. You ever think about that? So while you deny your husband sex, no, we're not having sex tonight, right? He gets up and he's going to work to see his work wife. They call you work boo. He's going to see his work boo. So when you don't give him the sex that, he requires, not necessarily for the physical. Married men don't have sex for physical, because then they didn't need to get married. They could have just stayed out in the street sleeping with women. When a man makes a commitment to marry you, a real man makes a commitment to marry you, he's not marrying you for sex. He just uses the sex as a means of connecting with you emotionally. Understand? We're talking about married men, real men. We're not talking about boys. We're talking about married men. When a man makes a commitment to marry you, he's not marrying you for sex. He didn't need to marry you for sex. Hello, in America, the female to male ratio might be 6-1. He don't need to marry you for sex. If a man made a commitment to you, the commitment was a commitment that was about being in a relationship with you. Sex is just a means to an end. It's a means to connect with you. Okay? So, men have, at these workplaces have a very hard time setting boundaries with women. And this is what happens. Boundaries are for you, not for the other person. When you set boundaries, that's for you, not for the other person. The other person may not respect your boundaries, but you set boundaries for yourself because that's as far as you're going to go. You can't control nobody else's behavior. The only behavior that you can control is yours, right? As Musa said to Allah, "Inni la amliku nafsi illa nafsi wa akhi." I only have control over me and my brother. I don't have any control over Bani Israel. I don't have any control over nobody else. All right? So men at your workplaces, you have to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries because a woman will only go as far as you allow her. I'll say that again. A woman will only go as far as you allow her. And vice versa with women at the workplace. The man will only go as far as you let them. If you don't say, "I'm married," then basically the signal that you're sending to the woman is what? If you don't say, "I'm married," and in Islam, we don't wear like the marital rings, or we don't wear the wedding ring on our fingers. Most of us. It's not actually from the Sunnah. It's actually a Western practice, but nonetheless, some people do it, some people don't. But if you don't tell this woman at your workplace that you're married, and she finds out from somebody else, right? Let's say y'all flirting. You never said to her you're married. And then she talks to another coworker, and the coworker says, "Oh, you know he married, right?" What does that signal send to her? Because you guys been kicking it for a while, and you never once said to her that you're married. What message is that sending? Either you're embarrassed about your marriage, or you're trying to give the impression that you're not married. I didn't say it was a bid'ah, all right? Because if you say it's a bid'ah, then you're saying that you got to bring dalil to say it's a bid'ah. I said that it's a Western practice. It's not actually from the tradition of Islam. I didn't say it was a bid'ah, okay? Quote me correctly. I didn't say it was a bid'ah. I don't have any dalil, evidence, concrete evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah to say that it's a bid'ah. Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala was asked about dhikr beads. People make dhikr beads, subhanAllah, with the beads. He was asked about the dhikr beads. Are they bid'ah? Are they innovation? He said, "I have no dalil to say that they are innovation." However, the Prophet ﷺ used to make dhikr with his fingers. Okay? Notice his language. The scholars were not quick to label something bid'ah. That's what we do today in this day and time, due to our ignorance. Don't be so quick to label something, because if you say it's a bid'ah, then you are the one that is responsible for bringing dalil to say that it's a bid'ah. And if you don't have a scholar who preceded you in that, then that means that you're making up your own fatwas, and that's very dangerous. Just I'm saying it out of respect, brother Basir. Not saying it, in a disrespectful way. I'm just saying, be careful. Choose your terminologies wisely. Choose your terminologies very wisely. Saying something is not from Islam or saying something is not from the Sunnah doesn't automatically mean that it's a bid'ah. It doesn't automatically mean it's a bid'ah. Because I'm not going into the definition of bid'ah, but that's going to take me completely off my square. But just be careful how you label things, okay? So men have a hard time creating boundaries with women. And this is another man logic. Another man logic, all right, is that sometimes we believe that by putting up boundaries is offensive to the woman. I don't want to offend her, right? This is man logic. Man logic, and sometimes it has happened to me. You're saying, well, I don't want to offend her. I don't want to come off brash. I don't want to come off. And your wife is looking at you like, well, you okay with not offending her, but you okay with offending me? That's the man logic. That's the man logic. Absolutely. We don't want to offend her. But you're offending your wife. Your wife tell you, hey, tell the girl to stop emailing you. Well, I don't want to just say, don't email me no more. Like, what do you want me to say? It's like, structure it any way you want to. Tell the chick to stop emailing you. You steady worrying about offending this woman, but you're not worrying about offending your wife. And we all fall victim to that one, including myself. I'm guilty of that, even myself. We're so concerned about infringing on somebody else. We're so concerned about offending somebody else. And the one's feelings that we should be concerned about, we don't even care about. You understand? This is man logic. Stop worrying about, this is how you know that you are in an emotional relationship with somebody. If you walked up with your wife and that woman saw you and your wife and you're uncomfortable, you're in an emotional relationship. If you are with your wife and that woman sees you with your wife and it makes you uncomfortable, you are in an emotional relationship. No woman seeing you with your wife should make you uncomfortable. It's your wife. Why are you uncomfortable? It's your wife. Why are you uncomfortable? Your wife shows up to bring you lunch. You're like, babe, you ain't have to come here. Babe, you got to call me the next time before you come up here. Right? You are embarrassed that your wife showed up at your job. You are embarrassed. That means that you are in an emotional relationship. I'll do you one better. Sometimes brothers have a sit down with a sister. Right? You're having a sit down. And in Islam, this is a premarital courting phase where we meet with one another. Right? And in that phase, you see some red flags. You see some things about this woman that, you really not feeling. But you've already made an emotional commitment to her. And so while other brothers are telling you like, nah, I don't think she's right for you. You like, yeah, but we done already had like 3 or 4 sit downs and I can't just call it off now. You're like, what? This is your life we're talking about here. This is your life. What do you mean you can't call it off now? So you're going to marry this sister simply because you have made an emotional commitment to her. Real talk, man. Real talk. I've seen it a million times. You're going to go ahead and marry this sister. And this is only men. This is what we do. This is our logic. We think that because we've already made an emotional commitment to someone, we cannot pull out of the situation. And this is how brothers lose their marriages. Because you choose your emotional commitment over the marital commitment that you made to this woman. Real talk. It don't get any realer than that. You at work, you messing around with this woman, and instead of you telling this woman, all right, this situation has gone far enough. I cannot do this with you anymore. You continue on because you can't cut it off now. And understand that when a man is in men, when you are in an emotional, committed relationship, even if it's platonic, even if it means that you are not having sex with the woman, you are in an emotionally committed relationship with this woman, it starts to pull the energy from your emotional relationship with your wife. Which is why she picks up on the fact that there's someone else involved, because you can no longer maintain the level of commitment of emotional consistency because someone else is in the picture. You understand? You start pulling from one, robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? As we used to say in Jahiliyyah. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So you're pulling from your emotional relationship with your wife to invest in the emotional relationship with your work boo. Or the boo that you met online. Real talk. So you start to drift away from your wife, and your wife can't understand what's happening. She chalks it up as, emotionally we're not connected anymore. Something's wrong with you. Something's going on. Yeah, something wrong, all right. Something wrong, all right. Because you can't maintain, when you pull from one, it happens even in polygyny. Wallah al-azim, it happens even in polygyny. You can't invest emotionally into one situation and maintain the same level of emotional consistency in another. You can't. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِي, and we have not given any one man two hearts. Understand? Real talk. It happens even in polygyny. Even in polygyny. You guys follow me? Men, I need you guys to understand what's happening. You cannot invest emotionally in a situation and maintain a consistent level of emotion in another situation. You're going to end up pulling from that to invest in that. You're pulling from this situation to invest in this situation. And you get caught up. Because somebody's going to figure it out. Your first wife, your wife is going to figure it out. And, this is, we should be very careful of this. And this happens online. You start to, create, online presence with a woman. You guys are talking online and and then there's some symptoms. I don't know if y'all really want me to go there. There's some symptoms that you are in an emotional relationship. The thing about polygyny is that, number one, you guys understand the situation that you're in. So when a wife sees that his woman is pulling away, right? The wife sees his her husband pulling away. This is where she needs to get therapy. Because you're now starting to see your husband in a different light. You're starting to see your husband, go down a different road. You're starting to see your husband in a different light. He's not, engaged anymore emotionally. And you have to understand that there's somebody else involved in his life. And as hard of a pill that is to swallow, you have to understand that this comes along with the territory of polygyny. And you will get over that. You will get over that. But at that moment, this is when you need your mom. This is when you need other women, supportive women, not people that tell you, oh, you should get out of that situation. Not people who's going to placate your feelings. But that is now the time when you start to strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strengthen your relationship with the other females in your family. You need a safety net. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ intervened when Ali wanted to marry a second wife over his daughter Fatima. And the Prophet ﷺ intervened because Fatima didn't have a support system. Her mother Khadija was deceased, her sister Ruqayya, her sister Kulthum, and her sister Zainab. All of her older, she was the baby. And the Prophet ﷺ knew the type of impact that situation would have on Fatima. She did not have a support system. So when a woman sees her husband pulling away a little bit emotionally to invest in the other situation, she has to understand what is happening. Right? You gotta have a support system. All right, so what are some of the symptoms, the signs, and I'll conclude with that and deal with a couple questions or whatever. Some of the signs or the symptoms that you are in an emotional relationship, or that your husband or men, you are in an emotional relationship. Number one is that, like I said, you begin to pull away emotionally from your current relationship and you begin to invest in another one. Or there is no emotional connection between you and your wife, or very little, and you don't make an attempt to foster a better emotional relationship with her. Instead, you take whatever residual emotional energy you have and you invest it in a new situation. All right? Number two is you start to become very private, right? You become very private. You know, the type of situation where you're turning your phone over on its face. You don't want your text messages to come up and your wife to see it, right? You turn you turn your cell phone on silent, right? So that, you know, your wife doesn't question you. Why your phone keep blinging? You know, why your phone keep dinging? Like, who's texting you, right? We don't ever want to hear that question. All right. You start to become overly complimentary to your wife because you're trying to satisfy that guilt. You're feeling guilty about what you're doing. You know that what you're doing is wrong. So what you do is try to overcompensate for that guilt, right? Or overshadow the guilt by, you know, showering your wife with all types of compliments, unusual compliments about how beautiful she is, how much you love her, whatever the case may be. Yeah, all of these are telltale signs that you are in an emotional relationship, right? Like I said before, your wife showing up at work or whatever the case may be, and you feeling embarrassed. You feeling embarrassed. If that woman you have an emotional connection with sees you and your wife together, she responds a different way, or you feel embarrassed when you see, because you already in an emotional relationship with her. You start to spend more time in the bathroom because that's the only place in your home. Mind you, it's a small space in your house. The only time that you can have some real privacy is when you're in the bathroom. So you spend longer time in the bathroom, right? Texting, doing whatever. You turn on the shower and you're texting, you know, while the shower is running, giving the impression that you're in the shower, right? You become very private. You don't no longer want your wife to come in the bathroom while you're in the bathroom, right? You become very private. You now need, right? You now need, you know, privacy, which you didn't need before, but now you do need because there's someone else involved, right? Absolutely. You're involved with the shaitan. You don't even realize it. You know, so brothers, when you start to see yourself, you know, exhibiting these type of behaviors, you have to make a choice. You have to say, this has to stop, or, you know, you continue and you're going to end up losing both of them, man. Put it all on the table. You know, so, you know, these are just some of the signs that, you know, a person is in, you know, an emotional relationship. And, you know, for men, this is not, you know, me putting men on the spot, but I know that you don't really know how you got yourself in this situation. Some men don't even, you just wake up and you just realize you in a mess, man. And you didn't plan for this. You didn't set out on this, but you're in it. You're in the thick of it now. And the only way out of this situation is the same way that you went into it. The same way you went in is the same way you come out of this. You know, you got to come out of this situation. You got to dead this situation in order to keep your marriage, or you can keep this situation and lose your marriage. Well, I mean, alhamdulillah. I mean, we've arrived. You know what I mean? Like, we're here. Like, we can't cry over spilled milk. We can't cry over, you know, the past experiences. The past experiences that you guys have had that, you know, that you can all identify with some of the things that I'm saying. Those situations should have made you stronger. It should have made you stronger and smarter, more deliberate. A lot of times we go into relationships, we don't even know what we're looking for. We don't even know what we want. We don't know what we want until after we've already been in a relationship, been hurt, been scarred, and then we like, all right, now I know what not to look for. And then we go into it again, and then, you know, we think we got it figured out, and then we come out of that one, and then we like, now I know what not to look for, and I know what I am looking for. You know what I mean? So by the third situation, and I pray nobody ever has to go through that, you know, you got it right. And this is why people who've been married and divorced at least 2 or 3 times, like, you don't even want to go into it anymore, because you can see so much clearly now, and you can see how dangerous, you know, marriages can be, these type of relationships can be, and you don't think that, you know, anybody can, you know, provide you with what you need. So you find comfort in just being by yourself. You know what I mean? You're trying to just get comfort just being by yourself. And sometimes that's what you need to do. Sometimes you need to fall back from relationships altogether and take some time out to get to know you. That's the whole purpose of separation. Is to get to know you, to find out where you went wrong. Where did I go wrong? Because if you constantly saying it was somebody else's fault, it wasn't nobody else's fault. You played a part in that as well. So sisters, as we conclude, I want you to, be more mindful about the emotional connection that you have with your spouse, the emotional connection you have with your husband. It's very important. Most of the men that cheat don't cheat because of sex. What about those who come back after they divorce? I don't understand. What do you mean? Self-reflection is essential to successful marriages. Yes, very, very much so, Sister Aaliyah. Introspection. Men don't express, so how do you try to fix or solve this? As a woman who may see these signs, or once they are emotionally attached to the other person, how do they come back? Counseling, man. You can't, most of the time you can't do that. Because a lot of times the husband has given up trying to convey to you what he needs. He's given up. And that's one of the reasons why they go into these relationships with these other women, is that they've given up. So at that point, you probably need to go for counseling and let him express what he was feeling from you that he felt was ignored, and try to bring a third party in to kind of help you guys make sense of everything. Because sometimes when you're conveying something to your spouse over and over again and they're not hearing you, sometimes you just give up. You're just like, I'm tired of talking to you. I'm tired of telling you what I need. I'm tired of, being, put on the back burner, because, people give up. We're human. We give up. So sometimes you may need, when you see your situation going in that route, you may need to, go for counseling. Admitting to, neglect, admitting to it, saying, hey, listen, I know, I haven't been there for you emotionally like you need me to. You know what I mean? I just heard a lecture and it just opened my eyes to some things that maybe I wasn't conscious of. But I am now. When a woman stops expressing her feelings, she's pretty much done. Yeah, anybody, not just a woman, even a man. Even a man. But women would be more likely to work out a situation even if infidelity was involved than a man would. Because for men, not every situation of infidelity is emotionally wrought to that point of return. Sometimes, as I said, sex just comes along with it. Oftentimes, divorces don't take enough time to heal and self-reflect before the next spousal search, and it becomes a revolving door. Absolutely. Serial marriages. Our mistakes can become our lessons. Absolutely. You learn more from your mistakes. You learn more from your failures than you do your successes. Absolutely. You learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. Absolutely. So the mistakes that you make become lessons for you. We start to resent the husbands because we see them engage with others but don't have it for us. Then you have to figure out why. Don't resent him. Figure out why. If you're invested in this situation, it's just like having a business. And marriages are like a business. A marriage is like a business. So if you see, for example, you do your annual, audit, you do your annual evaluation of your business, and you find out that you spent more than you made, right? You spent more than you made. This particular quota or this particular quarter, you spent more than you made, all right? After you do your evaluation. Do you just say, I'm shutting this business down, this ain't working for me? Or do you say, well, maybe I need to call into somebody that's more business savvy to help me figure out or right my wrongs and figure out where I went wrong with this business. I'm not going to just shut my business down because after I do some evaluation, some assessment, I realize that I spent more than I made. Because men and women communicate differently, how would you bring it up that you see something is wrong? You have to have a conversation. I mean, you know your spouse better than anybody, and you know the times that he is receptive. Men, we have a certain time, a particular place. All of these things have to be factors when you're talking about him being receptive. It's not just about you confronting him about some behavior. It's about you being able to communicate to him in a way where he's going to be most receptive. You know, sometimes it might not be you. Maybe he's not going to be receptive to you. Maybe he'll be receptive to somebody else. Or maybe you need to get somebody else involved. It depends. What about a situation where you meet someone and they tell you things about the relationship or his marriage like it was over, but you started talking to him, but you already attached what happened? Shorten your questions a little bit. Shorten your questions a little bit so I can actually read it before it disappears. Right. Sister Charlene, you have to examine what it is they need. It's not that you're taking blame or taking ownership. He's responsible for his actions. If he cheated, then those are his actions. But you also have to, if you want to repair the problem, you got to get to the root of it. And if he says that, well, you know, you've been pretty neglectful of my emotions, you know, then you have to take some responsibility for that. You can't just say, well, that's not an excuse to cheat. No, it's not an excuse to cheat. You should ask your spouse. You should say, is this a good time to talk? Is this a good time to talk? Is this a good time where we can sit down and have a conversation? He might say, nah, you know, I just got off of work. Give me some time, or whatever the case may be. Understand? So to ask. Even permission. Sister Naila said this at the marriage retreat. Sometimes you have to ask permission to leave the conversation. Don't say, this conversation is over, and storm out the door, because guess what? It's not over. When you come back, the conversation is on pause. When you come back, you're going to pick up where you left off. When you say, can we put pause on this conversation until I get back, or I need some time to kind of process this? You know, it's all coming at me so fast. Can we put pause on the, you know, conversation and we come back? And you're basically asking for permission. You're waving the white flag. You're asking permission to leave the conversation. Can I exit? The only problem is my spouse doesn't like to talk. Then I don't know what type of relationship you can have if you can't talk. Every time you say, hey, can we talk? Oh, later. This person is dismissive. This person is dismissive. If the person doesn't want to have a conversation with you about something that is affecting, it's just like you telling your wife, no, I don't feel like talking right now. But then your boy call you to talk about the game and you want to have a conversation with him about the game. Like, come on, man. How dismissive can you be? Your wife is saying, we're having problems in our marriage. We need to sit down and talk. Right? And you're saying, oh, I don't want to talk. Yeah, that's pretty much a boy. That's not men behavior. Men may not want to talk all the time, but when they see that something is affecting their relationship, something is impacting their relationship, they can see the energy of their wife changing, then they want to fix that. We're proverbial problem solvers. That's our nature, to solve the problem. Our nature is not to let a problem fester or let it, just continue. Our nature as men is to solve the problem. So when you have a problem in your marriage and you find that this boy that you're married to, or this boy you're in a relationship with, just sees the problem but doesn't really care, then is it even safe to say that this is a relationship you should even be in? And I've come across brothers who, the wives want counseling, they want to talk and fix the situation, and he's just like very nonchalant. I don't need no counseling, and I ain't no problem, whatever the case may be. Those type of situations are very oppressive, unfortunately. Right? Please don't self-disclose on here. If you have a personal situation that you would like me to assist you with, then you can email me. I'm not going to answer any personal questions, because personal situations, I have to hear both sides. I have to, look in deep into the situation. It's not that simple. Right, exactly. Thank you, Basir. These comments show that people have already made up their minds about how the other person will respond or react, and therefore decide for him instead of allowing him to be responsible for his. Yes, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I agree wholeheartedly. I agree wholeheartedly. And understand something, like counseling and things like that, in addressing these type of situations, I have to hear both sides. I have to hear both sides. I have to look into the situation. I might have to ask you some uncomfortable questions if you are really serious about, bringing some closure to the situation. I find that women in general are very mindful of their husband's thoughts and emotions. They encourage communication more than men would do for their wives. That might be true in an overall sense. That might be true. There may be some truth to that. Yes, as I said before, making sure when you come to your spouse, you come to your significant other about a conversation, don't put him on the defense. Don't make him defensive. Don't say, we need to talk right now. Already he's just like, all right, I can see where this situation is going already. I don't really want to get into it with you. You understand? Don't put him on the defense. Ask in a way where you actually want his input. Ask, you know what I mean? Exactly. He's going to put his wall up. He's going to already begin to picking his defense. Like he got his lawyer, he got this one, he got his attorney, he's already getting his defense together. Don't put him on defense. Don't say we need to talk right now, as soon as you get home, whatever. Don't do that. Don't put him on defense. Say, can you let me know when there's a good time where we can sit down and talk? Because, I really need to connect with you. How do you get counseling if there's not a structure set up in your Muslim community to help? You got to reach out to people who can. Your community should be the first place that you look, but it's not the only place. I told you, Sister Naila and Sister Hassan, that Clay couple, look them up on Instagram. If you want help in your relationship, let Sister Naila and Hassan help you in your relationship. They're very professional, and they know exactly what they're doing. How does one approach the situation where the woman always turns it back on the man and it's always one's fault? Here again, I talked about this in Man Logic, I think 3. Whenever you have the blame game, she's saying it's your fault, he's saying it's her fault, she's saying it's his fault, this is an immature couple. Because it's not about whose fault it is. Because the fact of the matter is that both of y'all in a relationship, it's both of your fault. Somebody was being neglected. Somebody just made a bad decision or whatever the case may be. But it took two to create that situation. In a marriage, there's never just one person's fault. Never. I'm amazed at couples who always play this black and white game. It's your fault. It's my fault. It's your fault. Nah, you don't place the blame on nobody. First of all, it's about perspective. And number 2, it's about solving the problem. Because you can either be right and single or you can be wrong and you can be married. Your choice. It's your choice. You can be right and single, or you can be wrong and married. Your choice. You have a lot of people who are solely concerned with being right. They don't care or whether or not, the situation is fixing itself, the situation is fixed, or whatever the case may be. They don't care about any of that. All they care about is who's right and who's wrong. So, it's both of you share in the blame. It's not one person's fault. I'm always amazed that, you're both in a relationship, but the whole problem of the relationship is him or her, right? So you don't take any blame. You didn't do anything. You're just innocent person. You didn't do anything to anybody, right? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. So he created this whole situation all by himself. Yeah, I'm breaking up because the battery was going dead. I had to plug in the right? Now, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about you listening to his perspective and respecting his perspective, even if you don't necessarily agree with it. You respect it. Or and vice versa, her respecting your perspective, acknowledging your perspective, because the fact of the matter in the marriage is that you're two people having two totally different experiences in the same space. You're two people having two different experiences, sharing the same space. So it's about perspective. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. That's very immature. Very immature. Okay, I have time for one more question, you guys. My wife is always trying to say I'm trying to get with other women when that's not the case. I only want her and I've never cheated or whatever the case. All right, so then you might have an insecurity issue. Okay, you have, that's another situation when you're dealing with a woman who's insecure and constantly accusing you of, and then you got to kind of look at your actions. You have to look at your actions. How is she interpreting your actions? Is you smiling in the face of another woman? You looking in the direction of another woman? I mean, sisters, understand something. Like, because your husband looks in a particular direction does not mean that he is not interested in you anymore. And the only time that I would say that would be the truth is if he doesn't look at you at all. If you're at home and he never pays any attention to you, never tells you how beautiful you are, never embraces you or engages you in a manner that makes you feel wanted, but then when you're out and about, you're constantly seeing him look at other women, then that might be a telltale sign that he's not interested. He's lost interest in you. Not that he's not interested, but he's lost interest in you. And then you got to find out why. What is it about me that is not attractive to you anymore? You got to work at your marriage, man. You got to work at this. This thing doesn't just come, easy. You got to work at this. You don't have to save the lectures. The lectures are on Periscope. They're on Periscope, and I'm also streaming it live on Facebook Live. So you can go to Facebook Live or you can go to Periscope, and the lectures is there. They're there. Usually I turn them into audios and upload them to SoundCloud. You got to look discreetly, not staring women down. Well, I mean, Islamically, you shouldn't be staring women down at all, period. But when a woman is comfortable in her space, she doesn't get offended when she sees her husband looking at another woman. She doesn't get offended by that. And when a woman looks at her husband, she's not offended by it. She actually finds that some humor in that. That women find my husband attractive. Like, I think it's cute. Some women actually think it's cute that some women find their husband, especially if they're older men. They know their husband ain't going nowhere. They know their husband not going nowhere. And so when a young girl is they out and about and a woman, looking at her husband, she actually finds that humorous. Like, wow, the young girl's looking at you like you still got it. You still got it. Why would a woman be offended by that? He's going home with you. He's going home with you. He ain't going home with her. She can look all she wants. You don't have any control over the woman looking at your husband. You're going to beat everybody up that look in your husband's direction? I mean, like, you don't encourage that, but I mean, like, you can't control somebody else's actions. If you out and about with your spouse and you see women looking at your husband, I mean, you should feel honored because it's like, all right, they looking at him. Obviously, he's something, and I'm walking with him. Like, he's coming home with me. This is my husband. But men can't handle any man looking at their wives. No, because it's not natural. It's not natural that a man is okay with another man looking at his woman. That's not natural. So this is the situation where double standards, like we accept that there's a double standard with that. A man would not be cool with his wife looking at another man. A man would never be cool with that. A man will never be cool with another man looking at his wife, nor would a man be cool with his wife looking at another man. That's a double standard, and I mean, that's just the way that it is. Why does the man stay if he is already checked out? Very good question. And this will be my last one. Why does a man stay if he is already checked out? Well, there's a number of reasons why men stay. Here again, the man logic. I can't just leave her, right? That's man logic. I can't just leave her. I got kids with her, I got, all of this time and energy and, to invest in the situation. So a man is not going to just get up and leave because his logic tells him that I have already invested in so much and I don't want to hurt you, even though he's already hurting you by cheating on you. Like, that's man logic. That's the way we think. It sounds crazy, but that's the way we think. We say, I'm not going to leave her because I don't want to hurt her. But you're already hurting her by cheating on her. Right? You're already hurting her by cheating on her. But you don't want to leave her because you don't want to hurt her. That is it is insane, yes. But that just shows you how men are wired differently from women. Men are wired differently from women. The way we see the world, the way we approach the world is completely different. It's different. So while a man might say, I don't want to leave her because I don't want to hurt her. I've been with her all of these years, and we start pathologizing why we shouldn't leave. But the fact of the matter is that leaving her might be the best thing for her. You know what I mean? Leaving her might be the best thing for her. Whereas when a woman, checks out emotionally, she stays too. Women stay too when they're emotionally checked out. Sometimes it's fear of money, fear of being alone. There's a number of reasons. Men and women stay for pretty much the same reasons. Some men don't want to leave because they got to give up their pension. If the woman is, they're married legally, then it would be a very, very clear reason why a man doesn't leave. You know what I mean? Like, here in Delaware, like, I think I remember a brother telling me, like, the woman gets, like, upwards of 90% of your pension. Yes, here in Delaware. If you divorce her, she takes 90%, almost 90% of your pension. Right? So it might be cheaper to stay married than to get divorced. So sometimes it's about money. Sometimes it's about embarrassment, right? Even in the Muslim community, a woman knows she doesn't want to be in a relationship, but she's not going to ask for a khula, because a khula, which is, it might be a certain amount of time. Yeah, but it's, that's substantial. Like, you've worked for 50 years or 30 years of your life, and that pension is all about to go to this woman who you're not even married to anymore. Right? Sounds crazy, man, but the khula is an annulment of the marriage. This is when the husband and wife, the wife basically initiates it by saying she is not able to maintain, her duties as a wife to you under these particular conditions, right? And she ransoms herself out of the marriage by giving you back what you gave her as a dowry and in exchange for release from the marriage. All right. So in the Muslim community, a lot of women who don't want to be in certain situations, they won't ask for a khula. They'll stay no matter how dysfunctional the situation is until the man pronounces divorce. Because in the Muslim community, if a woman says she asked for a khula, then the stigma is that she was usually the one that couldn't be patient. So a lot of times in the Muslim community, we'll stay in situations that we know is not really working for us, solely based upon the stigma that is associated with how we exited the marriage. So if we exit the marriage through divorce, so if a man pronounces divorce on his wife, she'll leave with her head held high because she feel like, well, it was his fault. He's the one that pronounced divorce on me. I didn't do anything wrong. Right? So you can walk with your head high in the Muslim community because he was the one that pronounced divorce on you. Right? But if it's a khula, then the man can say, well, she asked for a khula. I didn't want a divorce. She wanted out. So now it looks like she's wrong. And we'll stay in all types of dysfunctional marriages and relationships simply because we're trying to escape the stigma that is associated with the way that we leave. Yeah, man. It's a real sad situation. But alhamdulillah, I got to leave now. It's time for prayer. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to benefit so much, so much stuff that we could have touched on. Obviously, I don't have the answers to everything. I'm just trying to spark the conversation, inshallah ta'ala, and I hope that, the information that was provided is, adds a little more clarity. You know, we're all putting the pieces of the puzzle together. We don't have it all figured out. We don't have it all figured out. The world in front of us is like a big puzzle, a big, huge puzzle. And we're just taking bits and pieces of the puzzle and putting it all together until we kind of can see the picture, right? Completely. We have pixels, and we're trying to get to the point where we can see the whole picture. So no one has the whole picture. I don't profess to have the whole picture. I don't profess to know everything. I'm just trying to contribute my part to the discussion, and in hopes that, you know, we can, you know, another piece of the puzzle, if you will. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us all for any shortcomings and mistakes that were made. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal the hearts of, you know, brothers and sisters who are in, you know, relationships that, you know, are draining, emotionally draining, relationships that, you know, are, you know, dysfunctional, that are not actually working out in the way that we would like it to work. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal the hearts of the brothers and sisters who have made a mess of their lives, you know, due to not really understanding how the, you know, the institution of marriage actually works. The next Man Logic will be Thursday, inshallah. The Man Logics will keep them on Thursday. Thursdays at 11 a.m. inshallah ta'ala. Next Friday, we will have a Friday night freestyle like we had this past Friday, where I will get online and brother, Sister Kimberly and brother Abdul Jalil, and, you know, we kind of just like continue the conversation, you know, continue the conversation that we've had on a more informal platform. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards you all. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. Wa subhanaka rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.